Hey YouTube, Girsu here, coming at you today with a little bit of a treat for you guys. Now obviously, as you could tell from the very first card on top right here, this is a band deck profile. I guess you can call it more of like a retro throwback kind of thing. A couple of my friends and me, we like to play band formats. Kind of similar to if you are familiar with Lithium on Yu-Gi-Oh! He does his cross bandless tournament. And so what we do is basically we build full power versions of decks and we face them off against each other, as far anything basically. I mean, even newer decks, older decks, anything like that. We've got a couple built. One of the decks that I have is actually full power PePe. And, back in the day I had actually played this deck for the very couple weeks that it was actually legal at what it is right now. So obviously about 40-50% of this deck is filled with banned cards and or cards that are limited or so on and so forth. So yeah, take that into consideration before you leave a comment saying, hey, Skullcrobat Joker's banned or something like that, because yeah, I know this is just for fun, and it's kind of like a nostalgia trip for me and hopefully for you guys too. Like I said, we don't bring this to tournaments, obviously. We just kind of, fool around and play each other with banned cards. And yeah, so anyways, this is just kind of something for, a little bit of nostalgia for you people who either play the deck or want to see what the power of this deck was and everything. So anyways, we'll start off with one of the best cards for Pendulum that ever existed, Performapal Skullcrobat Joker. Now, when he's normal summoned, you can add a Performapal monster from your deck to your hand, or a Magician Pendulum or Odd Eyes, but you don't search for any of those cards in this deck. You didn't need them. So, he was your best starter. The reason why, a little history lesson here, I've been playing this game for quite some time. The reason why this card is banned is because it searches for a searcher that searches for more searchers, and then that searcher searches for a searcher that searches more. So the Pendulum mechanic was originally supposed to be nerfed because you needed, out of the 5 starting cards in your hand, you needed 2 of them to be scales, so that leaves you with 3 cards to play with, right? So if you have a card like this, it searches you for like a 1-card scale, that being Performapal Monkey Board. So it basically turned your 3-card hand into a 4-card hand. And obviously the Pendulum summoning mechanic before Master Rule 3 was pretty busted. So 3 Skullcrobat Joker, he's your best normal summon in the deck. He gets you where you need to be, and you obviously would not play any less of that card. So, and his partner in crime, Performapal Monkey Board. Basically, the turn he's activated in the scale during your main phase, you can add a level 4 or lower Performapal monster from your deck to your hand. So obviously you can see the synergy there with Joker. You normal summon Joker, search him, search your other scale. That's 1 card. Gives you 3 cards basically on the field total. And I mean, not just that, but you can either do it backwards. You can draw him, activate him, search Joker, normal summon Joker, search your other scale. All 1 card. So very powerful back in the day. And I have most of the deck is actually max rarity because I love this deck so much. Playing it is just so nostalgic. And believe it or not, this deck actually, in today's standard of Yu-Gi-Oh!, this deck really doesn't do anything unfair except for the original Pendulum summoning. That's obviously still unfair. But when I face against, like my friend, he has full power Salad. He plays Salad, but all you really have to do is put 3 Gazelle and 3 Circle in the deck. But, it's not as good as people think it is. It's just a Pendulum summoning mechanic. It's not as good now. I mean, obviously, it's a good 4 or 5 years of power creep, so. But the next card is triple Performapal Pendulum Sorcerer. If it's special summon, you could target up to 2 cards you control and destroy them. And if you do add Performapal monsters with different names from your deck to your hand, equal to the number of monsters destroyed. This is actually the original text of this card. The card was actually reprinted in the Megatin saying equal to the number of cards destroyed, because when this first came out, people were actually disputing that you weren't allowed to pop your scales, or you couldn't pop him, but Yeah, you couldn't pop your scales because they weren't monsters, but when they are destroyed, they're considered monsters when they go to the extra deck. So technically, if you're destroying your scales, you're destroying their monsters in the extra deck. So that counted, but it actually was, you can actually just destroy any cards, even face-up spell or traps. So now, and the Megaton reprinted it as to where you can search for any cards, but this is just the original text of the card. All these are original rarity or highest rarity. So next, you play 2 Performapal Guitardo. You don't use monster effect, you're not going to summon this card. If you do, you're probably going to lose. You're probably losing if you need to summon this card. Basically what he does is if another Performapal is activated in your Pendulum zone, you just draw a card. So if you got 2 Performapals, if you open this in Monkey Board, slap this in your scale, activate Monkey Board, draw a card, activate Monkey Board, search a card. So yeah, it gives you the 2 cards back that you put in your scale, so yeah, that's pretty good. Same basic concept for Performapal Lizard Draw. He basically kind of does this, acts a little bit differently than him. In some instances, he's actually better than Guitardo, but in some instances, Guitardo is better than this. This is the one that you want to search with Monkey Board. He's a scale 6, and if you have a Performapal in your other scale, you destroy him, draw a card. So if you open these 2, you activate Performapal Guitardo. You activate Lizard Draw on the scale, draw a card. Lizard Draw effect, destroy a card, draw another one. It's your Pot of Greed play in the deck. So, very good. That's it for the Performapal monsters. Now for the next cards, 4 Mage Monsters. These were so good. Basically the best rank 4 engine for Pendulum at the time. Performage Plushfire. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect on the field, you spec a Performage monster from your hand or deck except for itself. And that is not once per turn. It's scale effect, I don't even need to read it to you, it doesn't matter. So basically what happens is if you open this with a Luster Pendulum, you just slap this in the scale, pop it with Luster Pendulum, search another one, spec one from the deck. And that's not once per turn, so it really works well with cards like Pendulum Sorcerer, Wavering Eyes. Any way to destroy this card just gives you a free monster on the field. So yeah, and a couple examples of the good monsters that you can summon with this is you got 3 Damage Juggler. This card was really good at the time because not only was it a Rhoda in the graveyard, but it also has the unique effect where when a card or effect is activated that would inflict damage to you, you pitch it, discard it, and you discard it and negate the activation and destroy it. So this was actually really good in the mirror match because if your opponent chained Wavering Eyes to your Wavering Eyes, you could stop their Wavering Eyes and yours would resolve. Because back in the day there were Wavering Eyes wars basically. Pendulum versus Pendulum, if you Wavering Eyes for 4, you get to search another Wavering Eyes and banish a card in the field, add a Pendulum monster, and burn for 5. So you get all 4 of the effects. So this was really crucial for negating it because it actually burned you for 5. So it included the effect to inflict damage. So this was really crucial in burning, negating the burn effect and negating Wavering Eyes in general. And then once in the grave, you banish it and you could search a Performage monster. So it's a Rhoda, hand trap, and it also, third effect is in the battle phase, you can pitch it and stop the next damage. So really good card. It was limited, or it was actually banned for a while, then they limited it and released it, so yeah. And then the trio of the one-ofs, Trick Clown, Hat Tricker, and Mirror Conductor. You mostly should know what Hat Tricker does. It was played a lot in Lightsworn, like Brilliant Fusion and stuff. You hit the grave, just pay 1,000, spec it. Hat Tricker, if there's 2 or more monsters on the field, you spec it. This is actually the one that you search the most, in my opinion, with Damage Juggler, how I play at least, because this is an extender. This is actually the only one of these that is the extender. Some people might used to play 2, but I liked it at 1 because this deck was very going first oriented. You're going to win if you go first, basically. So, yeah. And then Mirror Conductor was just a searchable scale. It was a 3 scale, which you really only Pendulum summoned to level 4 monsters in this deck, so it was kind of perfect. Also, during the other player's turn, you could target a face-up monster on the field, switch its current attack and defense, and then you can take 500 damage. This was actually really good. Back in the day, you could outwinda. You just switch your attack and defense, and then you can just attack over here. Not with this, but if you had something else on the field. So that's it for the Performage monsters. And for the best original Draco monsters, not the true Dracos, Luster Pendulum, the Dracoslayer. This guy made the deck function very well. What he does is in the scale, you pop the opposite card in your scale and you add the same. So he basically loaded up your extra deck for a massive Pendulum summon. And he was also your tuner in your deck, which allowed access to Magister Prominence, which was also a pretty good card. So, and there's also none of it's the scale effect is not a hard once per turn, and it's not limited to itself either. So if you have 2 in your hand, you could use it, activate it, pop the other one, search the third one, and that fills your extra deck up. So yeah, he's a very good card. And if you guys are newer players, back in the day, obviously before Link Monsters came out, Master Rule 3, you were allowed to Pendulum summon as many monsters from your extra deck as you wanted to. You weren't limited to zones where Link arrows pointed to. So filling up your extra deck was extremely crucial back in the day. So, and then you also play the one Master Pendulum. This guy's actually pretty important because Magister special summons a Dracoslayer from the deck. So basically you could special summon him, and I might have forgot to mention this, but Luster, he cannot be used as material for anything else. So only Dracoslayer monsters. So this is obviously a normal. He can be used for anything. So you could special summon him and make any of your other rank 4s. So he was really good for extending into other generic links or generic XC monsters. And then for Draco Face-Off, you play 2 Vector Pendulum, the Drake Overlord. This actually was pretty good in the mirror match because it's a skill drain for your pendulum, for your opponent's pendulum zones. So this actually was pretty good, but 9 times out of 10 he's not in the scale. So, but yeah, he was just you needed to play him to be able to resolve Draco Face-Off because he's a Drake Overlord, not a Draco Slayer. So yeah, I mean, all these things, he's got good attack too. So yeah. And for the last monster, I always liked to play 1 Archfiend Eccentric. There's a card in your extra deck during your end phase that allows you to search for any Pendulum monster. So if you search this during the end phase, this is a MST in the scale or a Exiled Force. As a monster, you can normal summon it, tribute it, and pop a monster. You could put it in the scale and pop a spell or trap. So this was good to out pesky floodgates and stuff like that. Yeah, so I just liked it. It was my little tech card back in the day. So that's actually it for the monsters. A lot of monsters, obviously. It's a Pendulum deck, so... for the spells, one of the best, you play triple Draco Face-Off. Sorry about the gold rarity. To me, this is max rarity, so the other option was a common. And I actually don't mind gold rarity on this, but yeah, you reveal a Dracoslayer and a Drake Overlord, and then your opponent randomly picks one of them for you to special summon or place in your Pendulum zone. 9 times out of 10, you're going to special summon it unless they hit like Luster, then you have Pellish Fire in your hand, you put it in the scale. But this card filled your extra deck and gave you a free body on board or a free scale. So this card is actually still limited to 1 to this day. It's actually a very, very powerful card. So yeah, I mean, every card in this deck is very, very powerful. Speaking of which, you have triple Wavering Eyes. Basically, what this card does is you destroy as many cards in the Pendulum zones as possible, including your opponent's. So obviously you can imagine how strong this was in the mirror match, and then given the amount you destroyed, you apply a certain effect in sequence. So if you destroy 1, you inflict 500 damage to your opponent. If you destroy 2, which is the minimal amount effect you're more likely going to use this card with, you're not just going to destroy 1 scale and burn them for 5 unless it's like they have 500 life points left. But if you destroy 2, you can add any Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. And destroying your scales is not really a negative in this deck, it's actually a positive, because if you have cards like Plush Fire in your scale, you're actually triggering those effects. And it also helps you clear, if your scales are mismatched with like Monkey Board, actually helps you clear your scales. So, and then if you get 3, like if you pop 2 of yours and 1 of your opponents, you can non-targeting banish a card on the field, and if you destroy all 4 on both sides of the field, you get to search for another Wavering Eyes. So yeah, that was a really good card. And the next card, recently actually limited in the legal format of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Instant Fusion. This card was just bonkers because Norden was a card, and Norden was just a free rank 4. Just pay 1,000, free rank 4. And yeah, not much else to say about Instant Fusion. Those are the only spells you play in the deck. 3 spells, all at 3, and they're all very, very powerful. So, don't play many traps, but a lot of people would say, hey, it's a Pendulum deck, you're not really supposed to play traps, right? Well, this is a different Pendulum deck, okay? This deck is so consistent that you can actually afford to play traps. So you have 1 card Scales, 1 card Pendulum summons for multiple monsters. It's your advantage was just nuts. So you play triple Solemn Strike. Now there were builds out there, if you guys are familiar with the card Guiding Ariadne, where you can actually pop the Guiding Ariadne and reveal 3 counter traps from your deck, and your opponent randomly picks one for, not randomly, your opponent picks one for you to put in your hand. So you would pop it, you could reveal 3 Solemn Strike, and they would have to give you a Solemn Strike. But the problem with that card that I never liked playing, even back in the day, was you had to play multiples, and if you drew one or the other, you were kind of like, the rest of them are kind of dead. It didn't really do anything else. So I just played 3 Solemn Strike. So you'll at least see one of the card. Your basic combo involves a Pot of Greed, so you'll probably draw into it. And the last card is a Treacherous Trap Hole. You play this because of a monster in your extra deck, which you probably already know if you're familiar with this deck, but I will get to it eventually. So yeah, Treacherous Trap Hole. If you have no traps in your grave, you could just target 2 monsters on the field and destroy those targets. So yeah, it was pretty good. So that's it for the main deck, 40 cards. Wouldn't play it at any less. Or actually, I might be 42. I might have miscounted, but 42 was nothing in this deck. I usually don't like to play more than 40 cards, but yeah, this deck was just so consistent that it didn't matter. So for the synchros, your best synchro, you'd play double Magister Prominence, the Blasting Dracoslayer. This card is nuts. It's not once per turn. Well, it's not a hard once per turn, I should say. It's a soft once per turn. But you make it with a tuner and any non-tuner Pendulum monsters. Once per turn, you could target a monster in your Pendulum zone or on your field, pop it, and you could spin, non-targeting, spin a card in the field into the deck. So this was actually your out to Dark Destroyer back in the day. This was your out to a lot of stuff that was very difficult to get over. And if that didn't seem like a good enough effect, he once per turn can special summon a Dracoslayer from your deck in defense position, but you can't use it for synchro material. That doesn't matter. So last synchro you play is 1 high Psyframe Lord Omega. The only way you can make this was if you instant fusion, summon Norden, and Norden's effect, you summoned a Luster Pendulum from your graveyard. Now, Luster Pendulum can't be used for anything else but a Dracoslayer, but Norden negates its effects, so that actually allows you to make Omega. So, fun little fact there. For the fusion monsters, you played 1 Dynastor Power, the Mighty Dracoslayer, and 1 Norden. Dynastor was really good because he was a contact fusion with a Dracoslayer, Pendulum monster, and any other Pendulum monster, and protects your Pendulum monsters and your Pendulum Scales from being destroyed by battle, or your opponent's card effects. So, and also once per turn you could special summon a Dracoslayer Pendulum monster from your hand or grave, but it can't be used as fusion material. So this Ignister and the Xyz monster loop, so it gives you if you have enough bodies on the board, it gives you a free rank 8 as well as a free end phase search. And then Norden is Norden. If you guys are newer players and you weren't familiar with this card, when this card is special summoned, you target a level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but its effects are negated and you banish it when this card leaves the field. So basically, you would summon this with instant fusion and special summon a level 4 monster from your grave, overlay, and make a free rank 4. And then it wouldn't get banished. And you can also recycle this card. You might say, why are you playing triple instant fusion and you're playing 1 target for it? Well, you'll see. So for your rank 8, you play 1 Hope Harbinger, Titanic Galaxy. This card was very easy to make because you could make Dynastor Power very easily as well as Ignister. So when you were done using their effects, you would overlay them for this guy, and that was your other negate on board. So that's the only rank 8 you play. That's the only way to make it, but it's very easy to make it. So, and then for the next cards, play Cyber Dragon Infinity as well as Cyber Dragon Nova. And then in order to summon these cards, you needed to play Tellarknight Ptolemaeus. So basically this took 3 level 4 monsters to Xyz summon it. And then you detach 3 Xyz materials from it, and you could rank up into any Xyz monster with 1 rank higher than this card. So yeah, you would make 3 Xyz summon into this, detach 3, slap Cyber Dragon Nova on top of it, and then slap Cyber Dragon Infinity on top of it. This card is banned because it would still be played to this day because it's very good. So that's the only way to make these 2 monsters, and this is just a stepping stone to this. So yeah, Telemize, pretty good card. And then for the last of the Xyz, you play 1 Magister Paladin. You could attach and special summon a face-up Dracoslayer from your extra deck, so it's an extender, and as well as when it was Xyz summoned during the end phase of the turn, you can search for any Pendulum monster. So that is how you search for the Archfiend Eccentric. Trap 6 Afflasia. This is for the Treacherous Trap Hole. Generic rank 4. During either player's turn, you detach and you can send a whole normal trap card that meets the activation conditions from your deck to the graveyard. And this effect becomes that target's effect. So yeah, you can pop 2 monsters on your opponent's side of the field, or if they have just 1 problem monster on the field, you can activate its effect, send Treacherous Trap Hole, target itself and the other monster. And this card is unaffected by the effects of traps while it has Xyz material. So yeah, it wouldn't destroy itself, but you would still destroy your opponent's monster. And then 1 Daigusto Emerald. This lets you put your Norden back and all your Synchro monsters and Xyz and even your Telemize package. So and then you draw a card. So that allows you to use Instant Fusion at least twice. I doubt you'll draw 3 of it in 1 game before you win anyway. So then the last 3, Blake Estelle. Detach 2, spin a card. Abyss Dweller, really good, still to this day. And King of the Feral Imps. Lets you search for a reptile, and your reptile monster is your lizard draw. So yeah, that's the deck. Thank you guys for watching, and like I said, I mean, I obviously know that there are cards in this deck that are banned, so please do not comment that and say, hey, those cards are banned, because, you know, I'm aware of that. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed it, though. I mean, for the people that have played for quite a while, you might be familiar with how strong this deck is, and you know, it's really nostalgic for me to show this to you guys. It's a really deck always will hold a place in my heart, not to get too sentimental, but it's one of the first decks that I fell in love with and made me really love the game once again. So even though it was busted, it was very, very fun to play. So alright guys, well, thank you for watching, and leave a comment, subscribe, a like, you know, it would really help the channel out. And I will see you next time.